With every single console and portable, there's always a handful of games that a lot of gamers hear about and they're like, man, I wish I could play that, but because of rarity, obscurity, and well, it's really hard to find some of these older games. People just are not able to experience them except through emulators and other means. And since it is the Game Boy's 25th anniversary this month, I decided to go back and look at 4 of the most obscure and rarest Game Boy games that I would love to play more of. Let's start off For the Frog, The Bell Tolls. And let's not get into the Japanese name because it's really long and hard for me to pronounce. So let's not show off my terrible Japanese skills on this stream here. But, so this is a game published by Nintendo, and it's essentially kind of like Zelda. You got these 2 princes, and they gotta go off because they gotta go rescue the kingdom. One of them is tougher than the other. I just finished beating Kingdom Hearts, so I'm going to go with the analogy of Sora and Riku. You got the runt Sora, who is what people play, and you got Riku, who is the more badass of the 2. But he'll learn his whatever circumstances, you know what I mean, and comeuppance. And yeah, so you travel the world. It's much like, Zelda Link's Awakening, where you talk to villagers, you do all that stuff. Battles are kind of weird because you kind of go into these Looney Tunes Scraggle clouds where you fight, and there's nothing controlling. You walk into battle, you fight, your strength and health determines the outcome, and then that's it. You just keep on doing that, repeat. And then when you go into dungeons, it's like a side-scroller, which is even weirder. So it's a really weird breed. This never came out over in America. This is a full patch of the game. You can find it online. And I recommend it. It's pretty cool so far. I haven't played it a lot, just maybe about an hour or 2, but I like it, and I definitely want to jump into more of this strange tale. Next up, we have a weird spin-off for Castlevania, Kid Dracula. Now, this is kind of weird. One, if you've listened to previous episodes or read my stuff in Game Boy articles, you know that I don't like the weird sprite distortion between the screen and the giant sprites. And this game definitely has giant sprites, and it's kind of distracting, but it's still pretty cool because you play as the titular evil Dracula character from the Castlevania series, but as a kid, or it's his kid, I don't know. Either way, it's super chibified, all the monsters are cute, you have like these Mega Man fireball powers that you can charge up, you can even turn into a bat, there's all these weird mini games, and the music is pretty awesome. It looks really, really good for an old game on the Game Boy. And I think it looks better, a little bit emulated, instead of on that big, terrible green screen. And the sprite characters are much more proportioned to the screen itself on a computer. However you play this, legally or not legally, I highly recommend it. I think I really want to go back and maybe do a blind review for this one. But yeah, check that out. How could I not talk about Metal Gear, one of my favorite series of all time? Now, by this title, Metal Gear Solid, one would think that this is just a straight port of the PS1 game. That is not correct. This is actually, in Japan, it's called Ghost Babel. And this should have kept that name for over here because it's not Metal Gear Solid ported. It's its own game. It's kind of like an alternate take on Metal Gear Solid. It's the mechanics and visual style of the first Metal Gear, but with a little bit more oomph that they had from Metal Gear Solid. It's a weird inbreed in between. It's actually new story, new characters, new bosses. It's pretty cool. I like the sprite work. The music's great. It's pretty hard, I gotta say, but if as a Metal Gear fan, I definitely want to check more on this. And this one is especially super, super, super rare if you can find a brand new copy. Even used is kind of hard to find, but it's out there. I bought my copy for 23 bucks, I think, and it was in alright condition, no box or anything like that. But one of my lifelong goals, or I hope it's not a lifelong goal, that would be really dumb if it was, but one of my goals is to actually get a boxed, sealed copy of this thing. So yeah, anyway, maybe the Japanese version, because that name, Ghost Babel, is far superior to just Metal Gear Solid on the Game Boy. But anyway, yeah, check that out. Last but not least, perhaps one of the most anticipated games that I own that I want to get to, but I'm just lazy about going back to Game Boy games. Anyway, this is Shantae, one of the last games to be released on the Game Boy Color, and it was in 2002 when the Game Boy Advance was already out. So that kind of puts things in perspective. And it's by Way Forward Studios. They do awesome pixel work. They did like that Adventure Time game. They did a bunch of other things. Good licensed stuff, actually. I'm actually working on something separately on how good just their licensed stuff is. But anyway, this is their original creation that they made first on the Game Boy Color. There's been a sequel for the DSi. There's one being made for the 3DS and one being made for the Wii U, and those have not come out yet. Anyway, as for this game, you play as like this genie princess girl, and she's being attacked by pirates, and so you go through the land. It's got like RPG elements because you can go to this town, you can buy items and upgrades and stuff like that. The character art is so good, the music's awesome, it feels really good. It's, I wouldn't call it hard necessarily, but it is kind of challenging. The sprite work with the colors is what kind of matches everything, that makes everything flesh together really well. But I like it a lot, and I really want to get into it. There's not a lot of pirate games out there, or like genie games, and yeah, I mean, ignoring this game is kind of sin-worthy because it's so good, as much as I've played it at least. But I mean, a lot of people have not, like me, have not been able to play it because it came out towards the end of the Game Boy Color, right? In 2002, when all these other bigger things were coming out. And I mean, even by this point, I mean, when the PlayStation came out, the Nintendo 64, going back to the Game Boy and stuff like that, it's kind of like, I mean, right when the Game Boy came out, that was when the Nintendo was out. So, I mean, the graphics comparisons wasn't that big. Even when the Super Nintendo came out, it's like, okay, now I'm still just, playing a portable handheld Nintendo. And then even the Game Boy Color was kind of like a weird in-between, between 8-bit and 16-bit. But once you get into the Game Boy Advance and you get the PlayStation and all that stuff, again, this game came out in 2002, way past the prime of the Game Boy Color. And it's a shame that no one was able to check it out. I'm kind of repeating myself, but I mean, I just really think you should play it. I'm definitely going to try and play it. Maybe closer to when those new games are coming out, but I like what I saw, and I hope you like what you see here from what I've played. And then, in general, I just want to say, please check out all these games, and buy them if you can find them somewhere. Please do, or write Nintendo and say you want these on the Virtual Console, because we'd love that. I highly, 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 highly doubt 100% that For the Frog, the Battletoads, is not going to be on the Virtual Console because it's a Japanese game. They never did an English patch for it. This is a fan patch. The same thing goes for Kid Dracula. So the only two games you can actually buy are Shantae and Metal Gear Solid. So maybe get Konami and wait for it to port those over to the Wii U or whatever if they want to bring them to Virtual Console. But yeah. Anyway, happy days to all who watch this, and along with happy birthday to the Game Boy for its 25th. And very good to close out on one of the last games. But yeah, anyway, have a great day. Boom,